And so parents do a lot of damage, not meaning to, by trying to make their kids be what they think they should be: good, smart, obliging, kind, nice. It's like saying, I'm a scientist, that you've got to be a scientist, or I'm athletic, you've got to be athletic. Your children are not yours. They don't come from you, they only come through you. And you might not be damaged, because human beings are actually incredibly resilient. They're not weak or fragile at all. We come through a lot. And if your life is a huge clock, your child will be probably the first 8 minutes. So you've got another 52 minutes to live a great life. And a lot of us think our early years shape us, and they do shape us, form us, but we don't realize that we have tremendous power to go, that was then, and that's not me anymore. So if you could have anything change in your life, if I could wave a magic wand and give you exactly what you want, what do you really want to get from this session?
I would love to feel worthy of going after anything I want to go after.
And I know you said a little bit, you get angry now if people try to make you do things.
Yeah.
So that's probably a slight overreaction.
Yeah.
And you want that to go.
That as well. To have less anger, resentment.
So how does the anger and resentment, how's that running your life now? How's it showing up, and what's it doing?
Before, I think the anger protected me from feeling the hurt and the pain. Now I feel like I feel it more often, but I think now it's turned into disassociation and delusion.
Okay. And what's your relationship like with your dad now?
Estranged.
So you don't see him?
Not at the moment, but I have been giving him chances again and again, at least 3 or 4 times.
Is he still just as controlling as he ever was?
Controlling and reactive, yeah.
Okay. What does reactive mean?
He's just really unpredictable, and at times he'll be very loving and charming and caring, but then out of nowhere it'll just be like a reaction to something small.
Describe your earliest childhood memory, the first thing you remember in your childhood.
I guess I do remember feeling fear. There was an instance where I remembered hiding under a bed in one of my childhood homes.
Okay, and you were fearful of?
I guess being caught or him finding me.
What would that mean if your father found you?
It was bad news.
Because?
I would potentially be hurt or in trouble.
So you were just a little girl, and you would be physically hurt if you didn't conform to your father's ideas. And his ideas seem to be very rigid, is that right? Can you give me an example of some of the things that he tried to impose on you? Because a little girl before the age of 5 has no logic at all, only feeling. And a little child would feel something like this: I'm nice to my daddy, but he's not nice to me. I try to please him and he shouts at me. So it's very confusing for a child. Often they don't even know why they're in trouble. But give me an example of something he'd expect of you that you couldn't fulfill that would make him react.
Yeah, I guess it was just little things. I don't remember a lot of them, but it could be like just eating in the car or spilling something or the way that I blew my nose. Like if it was just little minute things. So that's why it seems silly.
So he minded the way you blew your nose. He didn't like that. He had a way that you should do it that was different to you.
Right. It would just be like down, but he would be like, or I would be pushing up, and he was like, don't do that, you're going to mess up your nose.
Okay.
It's just like little things like that.
And how about how you ate?
Yeah, that too. I don't recall, but I do feel like...
And the noises you'd make as an everyday child?
That too. If I was like loud, maybe that would be shamed.
Tell me how he would shame you if you were loud.
Just like telling me to be quiet or calm down. Just shushing. And
when your mother was around and he did that, what did she do?
Nothing. She would just conform.
So, did you do the same thing to her? Expect her to act and react and eat in a certain way?
Yeah. Just like different roles. So like if she was cooking, it had to be done
His
a certain way. Yeah.
Okay. So when you're a small child and you have an authority figure who shouts a lot and the child just goes, that's called an imprint. It means something goes in. Let's imagine you're 2 and a dog jumps up at you and barks. And from that moment, you have an imprint which is, I'm scared of dogs because they're unpredictable. But your imprint was to be scared of your father because he was unpredictable. So with dogs, you can kind of live a life, I don't see dogs, and I live in an apartment without dogs, I don't go to the park. But how's that affected you, having that imprint of being controlled in a way, giving rules that you couldn't follow because you're just a little girl?
I think I've gone through a series of different coping mechanisms. At first it was like I had to have control over other people or plans or my boyfriends.
Yeah.
Then it was anger, so I would feel angry instead of sad or hurt or pain. It was just easier to feel angry.
Of course.
I think I also just limit myself to going after things because I just believe I'm not worthy. I feel inadequate. Talk myself out of things. I have like a very loud inner critic. I think the most recent one right now is just disassociation or delusion. That's the way I block it out. It's just like I'm not affected. Everything's fine.
So let's imagine you have a job and you've got a boss who's a little bit controlling, do it that way, or we do it this way, and that's not the right way. How would that impact you if you had someone in a position of work where you felt that they were trying to make you do things in a way that was controlling you?
Yeah, I'd say it's a little triggering, and I think a sense of rebellion comes out. But at the same time, I feel like perfectionism, so I feel very bad about myself if I don't do it right. Just a series of different things come up.
So would you say that you are a perfectionist?
Yeah, and so that stops me from doing things.
What do you know about perfectionists? In my experience, and you're very young, so you're quite lucky, but people who try to be perfect are usually the most unhappy because here's a race and it says run towards the finishing line, but then it moves and it moves and it moves and it moves, and you can never win that race because you can't complete it, because the race to be perfect has no ending. You could make a perfect dinner, you could have your house interior designed, you could go out in a perfect outfit, but you can't keep it like that. People who are perfect, try to be perfect, are very unhappy, but they're also often very, very lonely because it's hard to have a relationship with a perfectionist because they expect their children to be perfect and their partners to be perfect, and they're very easily triggered by things that aren't perfect. You imagine living in a house with a mother. I had that. The house had to be everything had to be put away. You know, you couldn't leave an apple correct. You couldn't put milk on the table in a carton. Butter had to come out of the thing and be in a dish. It had to be just so. And that wasn't a happy home. It was a perfect home. But I would have liked to live in a very messy home where you could just not have to have everything washed and put away, and even put away in their cupboards just so. So perfect people tend to really impact their children and their partners because the perfection says everything is good, but actually won't just say, oh yeah, there's a stain on the carpet, but I've got 5 cats and 3 kids and we live in chaos, and who cares? That's much nicer.
Yeah. I feel like I relate to that. I think I've lived under a microscope. I just felt like I was always being looked at, and so now I pay attention to little details that I stress about that aren't as important.
So do you think your father was a perfectionist?
Yes.
And did he want a perfect home and you to be perfect academically? And how was he about how you dressed as you got older?
I don't remember things about that, but definitely like how I studied or what I was going to do with my life. He was definitely very adamant on me going to med school.
Because he wanted that.
Yeah, he was a doctor too.
Did you want that?
No.
And how did he react when you said, I'm not doing that?
He was in denial, I guess. He just didn't understand why I wouldn't do what he wanted me to do.
And you could never, of course, say, because I'm a person with needs and desires, and I wasn't put on the planet to live your life, I was put on the planet to live my life, and you're a doctor, I didn't have to be a doctor. And how was he with your friends and boyfriends?
Very controlling as well. I don't remember in high school doing anything like fun. I definitely was always home with a curfew. Even though I had a boyfriend, I remember being home for dinner all the time. I don't think I had much of a social life.
And the curfew was so you'd be home studying?
Right, yeah.
Okay. So the fastest ways to fix this is to use hypnosis, because we learn what we live. We play the only part we've ever known, and then that part becomes who we are, and we become still. So you're a grown-up woman, but very impacted by what happened to that young girl. And the fastest way to end that is to use hypnosis to go back, have a look at the scenes, have a look at the impact they had, because the impact is different for everybody. It's never so much the scenes, it's the meaning you make of the scene, the way you've interpreted the scene. I'll never be free, this is my fault. They're all different ways to interpret the same scene. So after we've had a look at the scene, investigated and interpreted, we'll start to interrupt those beliefs, and then we'll install new ones so that you can be the person you want to be, not the person you feel you've been molded into becoming. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And how do you feel about being hypnotized?
I feel open to it.
Yeah,
I would
it's
love
lovely.
to be more present in my life.
Yeah. You see, the mind does what it thinks you want it to do, and your mind thinks, I don't want to be controlled, which is perfectly okay, but you're going to be on places like in an aeroplane where the stewardess sit down, but you can't get up. You might be somewhere, I know when I was going through customs in Bali, in certain countries, you have to do what they tell you to, unless you want to be arrested. And there are times in your life, no matter how free you think you are, where we have to obey. Like in COVID, we can't go out, we've got to wear a mask, we can't touch anything. I was actually going around a farmer's and they said, you're going around the wrong way, you've got to go that way and you can't go back again. So once you pass a store, you can't go back. And of course you feel like saying, oh, don't be silly, of course I can go back. But of course, there are times when there are rules. And so it would be easier for you to understand how you were impacted, but be free now to say, well, this time, you see, the only place you're really free is in your mind. A lot of people say, you know, I have to be in control, because if I'm not in control, I'm out of control. But here's the truth, there is no control. You can't control the weather. If you control your body, you'd never get a cold or a breakout. You can't control, the only thing you can control is your thinking. When you can control your thinking, it would change your life. And I've worked with many girls who were raised in cults where they really, one of them, they were given 4 sheets of toilet paper a day, and that was it. They couldn't have any more. Couldn't even own their own underwear. They had to ask for everything. Can I work out? Absolutely not. That's too worldly. Can I go for a walk? No, not on your own. And so when you are controlled to that level, you pick up this belief, if I'm not in control, I'm out of control. But here's the truth. You can only ever control your thoughts. I'm going to ask you a couple of questions that let me know how control is affecting you. Are you very tidy by nature? Do you like everything to be put away? Or are you very messy?
Definitely more on the tidy side.
You're tidy. How are you with alcohol? Do you like it?
I guess maybe when I was in my early 20s, but now I don't drink at all.
And why is that?
It just doesn't make me feel good.
Is that feeling of not being in control uncomfortable for you?
It's a good question, maybe.
Because also I love being drunk because I'm not in control. I say, no, I hate it. The minute I feel that, I start to pull back because I don't want to lose control or be out of control.
Right.
How are you with things like anesthetics or pre-meds?
Totally fine. Yeah, I don't have...
That doesn't bother you. You don't worry about that.
Yeah.
And you don't have to answer this next question because it's a bit personal and we can cut it out too. But can you orgasm?
I think more recently, yes.
Oh, that's good.
Before, it was not at all.
Because and these are the 4 questions that let me know whether you are trying to hold on to control or not. And good that you said you're better now than you were then. And the reason I'm asking this is because people think, oh, well, I'm in hypnosis, I'm not in control. Marissa's going to control my mind. But of course, if that was true, every hypnotist would be a billionaire because you take all our clients, put 2 more zeros on the payment or, you know, leave me, I know you want to send me some flowers, I'd actually really like a Mercedes. Of course, we can't do that. So it's important for you to know that I can't control you. For instance, if you said to me, I'd love to be a public speaker, I could hypnotize you to want to do that because you want it, but if you didn't want it, it would be much harder for me to say, no, you love speaking in public. So I can only help you to do what you already want to do. And you said you'd like to be free and carefree and not think about all the time about what other people are thinking of you. Okay.
Yeah, I would love to feel worthy of helping people, even though I'm damaged or have been hurt.
Well, we're all damaged, but there's degrees of damage. You know, we're all flawed. I'm a flawed person, you're a flawed person. We can have a lovely flawed relationship. So don't be too heavy with the damage because everyone is damaged by degrees. And you might not be damaged because human beings are actually incredibly resilient. They're not weak or fragile at all. We come through a lot. And if your life is a huge clock, your child will be probably the first 8 minutes. So you've got another 52 minutes to live a great life. And a lot of us think our early years shape us, and they do shape us, form us, but we don't realize that we have tremendous power to go, that was then, And that's not me anymore. So if you went home today and your father began to comment on the way you blew your nose, or didn't like your friends, or commented on how you looked, what would you say to him?
Guess I haven't thought about that, but I think my first reaction is to be confrontational.
It's like, here's the thing, imagine you had the kind of parent that said, you've got to eat everything on your plate. You may not get up till you finish everything, you're not leaving the table, there's no dessert, you sit there until you eat everything. And parents do that sometimes. But if you went home as a 35 and your dad said, you're not leaving till you finish everything on your plate, what would you do?
I'm still leaving, yeah.
Yeah, you'd say, watch me. I don't have to eat this just because you like it. So we're going to use hypnosis, Megan, to make you feel completely different, to help you understand. It's always the same thing. How did I get to be the way I was? And can that understanding be powerful enough to change? And the answer is absolutely yes. Understanding is power. So I'm going to show you how, where, why, when. You've got all these fears and issues, and then we're going to remove them so they won't bother you anymore. It's not like we're going to extract them, but in a way we sort of are. We're going to get you to realize that that will never be you again. That was then. And while that wasn't right, it doesn't have to affect your life anymore. Does that make sense? And hypnosis is really about how good you are at accepting suggestions. As a child, you accepted all kinds of suggestions that you didn't like. You were told what to wear, what to do, how to be. And you really didn't have any choice. But I'm going to show you how good you are at accepting suggestions. I'm going to show you. He was going to show me that you are really good at making suggestions real. Because when I know that, and when you know that, you're going to give yourself different suggestions, much better ones. You can forgive your father. You don't have to. Because you're too busy living your life being great. So as you go deeper, drift deeper, sink deeper, Megan, every single day you are moving on from one phenomenal accomplishment to another. Every day you're moving on from one incredible achievement to another. Every day you accept that you are deeply lovable just the way you are. You never have to earn love, work for love, chase love. It's all around you. When you're ready, just slowly, calmly, easily, just let yourself come back to your full awareness. Just open your eyes, just come back into the room. And just take a deep breath. How do you feel?
Lighter.
It's good to be lighter. It's strange to remember that, but it's not remembering, it's remembering what it did to you. But when you remember what it did to you, you think, well, now you can choose to never let it affect you like that ever again. So you investigate that little girl, you interpret how that affected her, then you interrupt it by saying, well, clearly your dad's not quite as smart as you thought he was. And then you install something better, which is you're free. And you never have to earn love or work for love or be perfect. You know, people don't even like perfect people. They're intimidating.
Yeah.
We like flawed people. The basis of all friendships is we choose people who share our vulnerabilities. Imagine if you haven't got any. Then I have clients like that. They have no friends. They're lonely. Perfect people are always lonely and always dissatisfied, because if the basis of friendship is I pick someone who shares my vulnerabilities, I pretend I haven't got any, then I'm going to be lonely my whole life.
Yeah.
Much better to go, yeah, I have some flaws, but my friends love me anyway.
Yeah.
I have these issues, but people love me anyway. It's good for everyone to look at their life in the same way, investigate. Look at that like a detective. Oh, look at that. Look at that scene in my life, or those scenes. That's how. And then you go from there to be the interpreter. Let's interpret together. How could those scenes affect you? Because any kid, any girl living Megan's life would have grown up exactly like Megan. So the next thing is interpret how those scenes affected. What do they do to you? How do they influence you? And then to interrupt it, that look, it isn't quite true. One of my clients said, my mum said to me, I'm so intelligent, I never have had you. Children are very boring, I'm too intelligent to be a mother. And then she had another one, it's like, wow, if you're that bloody intelligent, maybe you should have used birth control then, because being too smart to have a baby and realizing you don't like motherhood is okay once, but to do it again, I don't see the intelligence bit. That intelligence bit has lost me. I think that's someone who's not very smart. Investigate, interpret, interrupt the belief. My dad hit me because he loved me. My mum was hard on me because she wanted the best. You know, my dad left because I was annoying. None of these things are true. Your parents just didn't do their job. And some parents don't do their job for all kinds of reasons, not always their fault. But when you've investigated, interpreted, interrupted, you finally install something better, the truth that Megan is gorgeous and beautiful and smart, and she wasn't put on the earth to be her father. You know, there's a great poem by the prophet that says, your children are not your children. They're the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself, and why you can be like them. Never try to make them be like you, because life doesn't go backwards, it goes forwards, and they're the arrow that goes forwards, and you can house their bodies but not their dreams, because they live in the house of tomorrow, which you can never visit, ever. And I love that, because really it's saying your children are not yours. They're the next generation, their life's longing for itself, and you can't make them like you. You should never try to make them like you, because that's going backwards. You're going to let them be themselves. And people say to me, you know, my kids are so different. So, well, that is the point. Mm-hmm. Why would you have three that are exactly the same? Everyone is different. You can't give birth to yourself. You can't get, even identical twins are not the same. Mm-hmm. And so parents do a lot of damage, not meaning to, by trying to make their kids be what they think they should be: good, smart, obliging, you know, kind, nice. You know, it's like saying I'm a scientist, that you've got to be a scientist, or I'm athletic, you've got to be athletic. Your children are not yours. They don't come from you. They only come through you. And they come through with their own dreams and their own expectations, and you have to just let them be themselves. So on the journey to have your own freedom and your own empowerment, remember to investigate, interpret, interrupt, and install something better. And if you want help with the installation, I have all kinds of audio products for you on finding love, getting rid of money blocks, wealth blocks, health blocks, success blocks, so you can become the best version of yourself. So go and find the audio that works for you. They're all based on installing something better. You know, when our computer gets a bug, we get an expert and they install better software. But we have software here that's all got a bug in it. And just like upgrading our software, we have to upgrade our own software. And here, upgrade our thoughts. Your thoughts are yours to change. Your beliefs are yours to change. And you change your beliefs about who you are, it changes everything. And your beliefs are yours to change. But what I saw today was so interesting is, again, when you're a child, you make a belief, which is often a parent's belief. That belief starts to make you, and then you have something called confirmation bias. You're looking for proof of what you believe to be true, and you'll find it. So make better beliefs, which will make you, and then the confirmation bias will work. I'm finding proof every day that I'm a good person. I've got something to offer the world, and I'm free, and I can live my life on my terms.